facing the police every single day.
We, the jury, find as follows. As to count one, we find a defendant guilty of manslaughter while armed with a firearm as charged in the information. As to count two, we found a defendant guilty of attempted first-degree murder as charged in the information. If you find a defendant guilty of attempted first-degree murder, you must next answer the following questions. Did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant actually possessed a firearm? Yes. Did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant actually discharged a firearm? Yes. Did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant in discharging the firearm actually caused great bodily harm or death to Corey L. Jones? Yes.
I'm kind of speechless right now because I wanted the jury to get it right for Corey, and they did, and I'm grateful to them.
Joy and utter relief from Corey Jones' family and friends, and directed to the legal team that finally brought them justice.
Look what Palm Beach County did.
Yes.
Amen.
During trial, these prosecutors did not hold back in their commitment to convict Nouman Raja of Corey Jones' death, delivering impassioned pleas to jurors to believe that Raja was aggressive, reckless, killed Jones on purpose, and then lied about it.
This case, to me, signifies that justice is blind, and we really have a great system. We really do.
It was an unusual trial for prosecutors, going against a former police officer. They and police usually on the same side. This time, working to put Raja behind bars.
I just want to say that there's a huge team of people from many, many different agencies that worked on this case, and they all deserve the credit for bringing justice in this case.
Justice can be imperfect and it can be maddeningly slow, but it is justice, and our criminal justice system can be frustrating to many and even to us sometimes, but it's the best system we have.
I mean, we've been waiting for this for a long time, 3.5 years, and we finally getting justice. We got exactly what we wanted. It's hard. I mean, it's a lot of mixed emotions. It's overwhelming. It's definitely overwhelming. It's an awesome feeling, but it's also not an awesome feeling because of who's got to go down. You know, you have an officer that's going down, you know what I mean, getting arrested. And then you have good cops, you got bad cops, you got his kids, you got his family. You know, it's a lot of things that's playing along to this. It's almost like he was a sacrifice to get him off of the force. I mean, it's not just about this. It was other stuff that he was doing behind closed doors that we found out about. And it's just, you're doing a lot of bad, man, and sooner or later it's going to catch up.
Corey Jones' family says it has justice after a jury found the man who shot and killed him in 2015 guilty.
It is a case that the community has stayed on top of for the past 3.5 years. Tonight, we have team coverage on the verdict in the Nouman Raja trial. We'll start right off with News Channel 5's Michael Williams.
Jay, Kelly, thank you. Outside the Palm Beach County Courthouse complex, justice, the Corey Jones family said, not only for their son, then 31-year-old Corey Jones, but in a wider sense, their supporters say for black victims of police shootings nationwide, the kind of justice they said today that those victims had deserved as well, but in many cases, they argued, had not received. And so a verdict read in a courtroom in Palm Beach County, but its reverberations, its echoes being felt nationwide. After the verdicts read, guilty on manslaughter, guilty of attempted first-degree murder, Nouman Raja put in handcuffs. The first time something like that has happened in Florida in 30 years. The first time in 30 years that a police officer convicted for an on-duty shooting led out of the courtroom in view of his wife who was with him, just as the Corey Jones family sat in for the verdict this day, had sat in for the entire trial. And later, Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg had this to say.
There are no winners here. Nothing can bring Corey Jones back, but hopefully the verdict today will provide a measure of justice and closure to the Jones and Banks families and to our entire community. Hopefully now we can start to heal.
Again, David Ehrenberg, Palm Beach County State Attorney. For more now on reaction and the emotions in that courtroom today, Michelle Casada, who's been covering the trial from the very onset. She joins us live. Michelle.
Michael, Corey Jones's family held it together in the courtroom, but when they walked out after the verdict was read, they threw their arms up in the air and cried. They said today they got exactly what they wanted. Surrounded by Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputies who filled the courtroom when the verdict was read, Nouman Raja was emotionless.
Guilty of manslaughter while armed with a firearm. As to count 2, we found a defendant guilty of attempted first-degree murder.
The former cop who killed 31-year-old Corey Jones in October 2015 put his hands behind him, waiting to be put in handcuffs. Jones's family walked out of the courtroom in tears.
We just wanted justice, you know, and you to be held accountable for whatever you did.
C.J. Jones, Corey's brother, said after waiting more than 3 years for this day, he wants people to remember Corey as a smiling musician who was full of life.
You know, you seen that picture that they've been showing? That's Corey. That's him all day.
Stranded in his car off I-95, Jones was on the phone at 3 a.m. waiting for a tow truck. He was confronted by Raja in an unmarked van, plain clothes, an officer who never identified himself. The roadside assistance call recording could have been the state's most powerful piece of evidence to show Raja was the aggressor in the deadly encounter.
This definitely brings peace. I just want to say to the officers, you know, the good officers that's out there, keep doing your job, and definitely we'll weed out the bad ones.
I did try to talk to Nouman Raja's family outside of the courtroom, but his wife did not want to comment. The defense team did not speak right after the verdict was read, but later released a statement saying that they believe in Raja's innocence and will continue to stand by him.
Everybody have a seat. Good morning to everybody. At this juncture, are both sides ready? I believe we have a verdict. Yes, sir. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and consideration of this case. I also wish to advise you of some very special privileges enjoyed by jurors.
We, the jury, find as follows. As to count 1, we find a defendant guilty of manslaughter while armed with a firearm as charged in the information. As to count 2, we found a defendant guilty of attempted first-degree murder as charged in the information. If you find a defendant guilty of attempted first-degree murder, you must next answer the following questions. Did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant actually possessed a firearm? Yes. Did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant actually discharged a firearm? Yes. Did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, in discharging the firearm, actually caused great bodily harm or death to Corey L. Jones? Yes. So say we all, the 7th day of March, 2019, in West Palm Beach, County, Florida, signed, jury, 4-person.
Poll the jury.
Juror number 1, were the verdicts is read, your verdict? Juror number 2, were the verdicts is read, your verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 3, were the verdicts is read, your verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 4, were the verdicts is read, your verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 5, were the verdicts is read, your verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 6, were the verdicts is read, your verdicts?
Yes.
Thank you very much. You're excused. All right. So, state, what are your...
April 26th, it's a Friday.
April 26th. That's the 45-day mark.
Yes.
Okay. That'll be sentencing, 1:30 in the afternoon. And in between, I'll leave it to the lawyers to contact my office to set up whatever hearings need to be conducted regarding post-trial motions. Anything else I need to do this morning? So I revoke any bond. He's held no bond. I'll be adjudicating, but I'll be keeping the post-trial motions made.
So he is adjudicating.
Thank you so much for your cooperation and professionalism. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.
where family and loved ones of Corey Jones speaking or set to speak outside the courtroom.
So tell us, what are your thoughts and feelings about the verdict? Were you surprised if there was a guilty verdict on both counts?
No, I wasn't surprised because we knew it in our hearts that he was guilty. And I just thank God that the truth caught up with him and that he was convicted. And our family is happy but sad at the same time because we don't have Corey here with us. But I thank God for the state attorney that fought so hard for our family that we will get justice on this day. It was a long process, but we endured. And today we have justice. I want to thank God for all of my friends and those that loved Corey. You stuck by us, you encouraged us, and gave us a lot of love and support. I want to thank everyone who had any type of relationship with our son, Corey. Thank you.
Do you finally have some peace?
I have some closure. This is going to be a long journey for me. I never forget my son, and now I can begin to start the process of healing and doing the things that he desired to do, and that was music.
How difficult was it to sit through that trial, see some of those pictures? It must have been just heart-wrenching.
It was very hard to see my son laying there, all shot up. It was real tough. It was real tough.
What was going through your mind as you heard the verdict being read today? What were you thinking?
Peace. The pressure just left me. And I'm just filled with a lot of joy right now, and my emotions are running pretty wild right now. And
what would you say to the jurors and prosecutors in this case?
Thank God that they listened. Thank God that they was attentive. Thank God that they was focused and they persevered through the process. And this wasn't nothing about race. This was about justice. This was about the truth. And the truth caught up with him.
What would you say to Mr. Rogers, sir, if you had an opportunity to speak to him?
I would say to him, why didn't you let my son live? Why didn't you let my son go on that morning when he told you that he was okay, that he was good? You had the opportunity to let him go, but you decided to do something else, and you took his life. And because of that, you're in the predicament that you're in now.
Do you think that there is now an awareness of, and a heightened awareness of these types of cases? I mean, we see the recent decision in a national level? I know
Yeah.
not today, but maybe there's another heightened awareness.
I hope so. I hope so, and I just hope that this will bring awareness to what's going on in the police department, and that that they're not above the law. And just like I say, there's a lot of good police officers, but there are a lot of bad ones too, and that's what we want to do. We want to weed out.
And so, I mean, it's rare to get a guilty decision in a police-related shooting. How do you feel about that?
Well, you know, the problem is with that is that, you know, the truth will always prevail. The truth will always prevail, regardless of how many, you know, bad cops there is. The truth will always prevail. And this is what happened today. It was the truth that convicted him. It was the truth that brought him to justice. It was the truth that sent him to jail. It was the truth.
There you go, baby.
That gave us justice for Corey. Thank you.
All right, here we go. So sorry we had a little audio problem earlier.
Yes, hopefully you can hear us this time.
Yes, picking up where we left off, there is a former police sergeant in Bradenton who is under investigation, I believe by 2 agencies, is that right?
Yes, his own agency, which was Bradenton Police, and the FBI now, I believe, is the lead on this investigation after the department kind of handed over what they had gathered to them.
And while other people use apps like Bumble and Tinder, this sergeant allegedly used the databases to which he gained access as a law enforcement officer to track down and meet and date women.
Right.
Is that right?
And
Allegedly.
according to the investigation, he even had sex on the job at some point.
Okay.
And when we talk about these law enforcement databases, think, you know, how you find how they run a license plate or how they would search to find out where somebody lives. He, according to the investigation, used that database, those systems, in order to find, according, again, to the investigation. I want to make sure we make it clear that you know, we're not just claiming that it happened.
He hasn't been charged yet.
Right. But he did it to hundreds of women. He searched for hundreds of names that had nothing to do with the investigation, that were strictly for his own personal use.
So they know he wasn't looking up people for any purpose that had to do with him being a police officer. This was just, I'm going to just look for some ladies.
Right. They said
allegedly.
that he was looking up the women, and then they kind of cross-referenced it with the investigations that he was working on at the time. It didn't match up.
Oh.
Then his stories kind of got changed over time, and so that's how they, you know, part of how they figured out that he was doing this.
Do we know, Grady, what the initial tip was that made them start looking into this
Well,
guy?
yeah, we mentioned it when we were having technical issues, but
when we were silent.
He, according to the Bradenton police chief, he had been doing this since 2012, which means for the past 6 years, he had been searching women on the database for his own use. And so how this all came to a head and how they started this investigation last year was over the summer, he apparently met a woman in the parking lot of, you know, on patrol. He was just working.
Some establishment they met.
And again, this is all according to the police chief. Met her at the parking lot. He followed her without her knowing it to her house. Her parents answered, and he said, I wanted to talk to her. It's for an investigation or, you know, for work or whatever. But he wouldn't provide information about what it was about, and he wouldn't provide his superiors information either.
Wow.
So
they
those
could
parents,
verify.
and he said there was a domestic issue going on here, and they're like, no, there isn't. We're, you know, the heads of the household. Nothing's going on here. And they called to complain to the department. And the department said, okay, we need to check this out. And then they started looking into this. And that's when they found...
This was a younger woman, correct?
I believe so. You know, the interesting thing about this is we don't know any of these women because the investigation, since it's still in the hands of the FBI, they're not turning over the internal affairs investigation to us.
Okay.
But that brings us to the story that we have tonight. We did a lot of work tonight to try to find people who were somehow involved in this. And so we did that by finding people who had publicly posted on social media and reaching out to them. And we spoke to one woman who said she never met the guy, the officer or sergeant, in her life. She had never had any contact with him. But a detective showed up at her house about 6 months ago, which matches the timeline of when this investigation would have been going on, and showed a picture of the guy and said, "Do you know this guy?" And she said, "No, never seen him before." And she said the detective had a stack of files, which were all the other women that he had searched on the databases.
The ones they know about
They
so
know
far,
about, right. So as part of this investigation, the department talked to 150 women, one of which was the one that we talked to tonight, who said she was so creeped out by this, even though she never talked to the guy, she was worried that he might be following her, or, you know, just was creeped out by the whole situation.
Yes.
So she moved. She said, forget this. If this guy has my contact info and it's serious enough that a detective is coming to my house to talk to me about it, I'm out of here.
Well,
And
you
she
can't
moved.
blame her,
Yeah,
right? I
no.
mean, it is terrifying.
It would be startling when you don't even know the guy.
Well, and then you think about Grady, like, this is a guy who has a gun and a badge and a uniform and a police car.
Right.
So if he's engaging in, you know, nefarious activities, he can do so and kind of move about more freely than the average person, because you see someone who's in uniform, they're in a position of authority, you assume they're there on police business. You know, you're not going to have as many red flags.
And if I'm not mistaken, the chief said he identified himself as an officer in many of the situations and used that to his advantage in order to meet these women, go on dates, and apparently have sex with some of them. So yeah, it's as this lady said it, she was like, it was really creepy.
And his name again is?
It is Lionel Marinez.
Lionel Marinez. Yeah, I said it earlier with a very heavy accent on it. So.
And he'd been with the department for a long time too. He worked his way up to sergeant. I saw in his personnel file that he was officer of the month.
Yes.
He had good reviews over the years, and there was one letter of reprimand that we saw that was redacted, so we had no way of telling what it was for, but there was a 3-day suspension attached to it.
Oh, okay.
So this was 2012, which is when this stuff allegedly started, so we don't know, because it's redacted, we don't know, we can't tell why he was suspended.
That is just incredible. So the lady that you're going to hear from tonight in Grady's piece, she had posted something about...
Yeah, she just posted on Facebook, oh, that explains why this detective came to my house. She said she recognized this picture right away because this is the picture, or a picture of the guy that the detective showed her.
Isn't that amazing?
And she said, oh, okay, now it all makes sense.
Do they think, Grady, that there might be other people out there that they're unaware of?
Yeah, they're actually asking anyone else who he had contact with that they might not know about to reach out to them. And we have a number on our website, actually, WTSP.com. At the very bottom of the article, we mentioned that the FBI is now investigating to see if he broke any laws by doing this.
That are federal.
Right, and so that number's on our website if you had any contact with him.
A lot of times if you're using certain technology, it's automatically a federal crime, and so I would presume that that's why.
Or maybe, I thought maybe it was
a federal database.
That, or maybe his capacity as a law enforcement officer. You know, there could be any number of reasons, but yeah.
Even if it involves something as simple as interstate commerce. So when you hear about people who go to prison for long periods of time in white-collar crimes, for example, a lot of times it's wire fraud, mail fraud. So you're just talking about an exchange of business across state lines, and then it becomes literally a federal case. You know that expression, like, don't make a federal case out of it. It makes a federal case out of it.
And now with the internet, you know, there's...
That's why I think it's probably federal, right? It's because he was doing all this on search engines. So that's kind of a whole new world, you know.
Yeah, I mean, these databases have been around for years, but you just hope that the people who you entrust to use them to solve crimes and help people are using them for the right reasons.
Yeah, because they have access to quite a bit of information, and so you could be extremely vulnerable if there is somebody like this using these for, you know, bad purposes.
Yeah, and apparently he was cross-referencing people on social media to see pictures of them, you know, that kind of thing. Just really odd.
Do they have like a ballpark idea of how many women they think might have been involved?
The chief said several hundred.
Several hundred.
So that could be anywhere from 3 to 900, basically, or 999.
Yeah, that's just how many
and they talk to 150 of them themselves, so that just tells you, you know, they're not exaggerating here. They reached out and spoke with 150 people, and one of them is the lady that we talked to.
You know, it's a real shame that a department like Bradenton, which isn't a massive department by any stretch, is spending this kind of, you know, the man hours.
Yeah,
the
their own
resources,
detectives had to go out and do this type of work on
That's a
their own.
lot of money from the city,
Right.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, but at the same time, if it is going on, you're happy that they're getting to the bottom
Well,
of
that's
it.
true. It's just, it's a shame that they have to do
They
that.
have to at all, yeah.
They've got other things to do to keep people safe. Teresa saying the fox guarding the chicken coop. Kristen says, "OMG, this is scary and very creepy is correct." Eric says, "Power corrupts." Carl says he's not the only one. All we can do is pray. I'm not sure. That
Yeah,
refers to-
well,
do
I
you think
saw
that
a lot
he
of
was by
people.
himself?
Well, they do, but I saw a lot of people just in general on social media commenting that, you know, they just kind of have a general distrust in law
Oh.
enforcement because of situations like this.
Well, you know, it's a shame to besmirch the badge because there are so many people who wear it with great integrity, and when one person does something wrong, it's a shame that it does create distrust. Colleen says, "Not excusing his behavior, but I lived with my parents until I got married. What a sick individual." Wendy says, "Now we can hear." Yeah, sorry, Wendy. Apologize. Tony says, "Hi from Foxton Library, New Zealand." Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
Okay,
Hi,
that's
Tony.
very cool. Phyllis is from Bradenton. Okay, so this is your community, Phyllis. This is your backyard. Eric says, Drew Peterson Part 2. He's talking about a Chicago police officer who's now in prison. That was a pretty famous case. His wife Stacy went missing. She was never found. And in the course of investigating her disappearance, they ended up reopening the death of a previous wife of his, Kathleen Savio, and exhumed her body and re-examined the case, and then it was ruled a homicide.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they never have found Stacy. They never found her
Wow.
body. He was a police officer in Bolingbrook, Illinois, suburban Chicago. And yeah, I mean,
Nothing near that level of
this is not
accusation
that.
in this,
Yeah.
but
He became kind of a
certainly
national figure.
parallels with just misusing
power,
yeah.
right? Yeah, I guess that was probably what you were saying. So yeah, interesting comments. What I'm wondering, and hopefully by virtue of hearing Grady talk about the story tonight, someone will pass this along or share this with someone who may be able to help these investigators, or may be able to just come forward and give them, you know, any bit of information.
Yeah, I mean, think of the work they have in front of them to track down all of these people. Well, first, it starts with looking up all the searches that he's done, cross-referencing them with the actual crimes that he was researching for, and then, of course, going to these women. They're shooting from promos in the background.
There's a sign that they hold up at golf tournaments that says "Quiet Media," and so then you hear the announcers go like, "He's at the 9th hole,"
yeah.
and they're talking very quietly. So there's something that's being shot in our newsroom right now, so we have to kind of use our indoor voices here as we look at some of your comments. Let me see if there are any more. Marcia says one person, LOL, most of them. Do you know this person, Joe?
Joe?
He's happy to see you.
Hi.
There you go.
Hi, Joe.
All right. Well, I'm excited for your story. You know,
Yeah.
I'm really interested to hear what this lady has to say.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't have any interaction with this sergeant himself, but the fact that she had a detective visit her out of the blue when she hadn't committed a crime freaked her out and, you know, certainly made her concerned enough to move.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll see you tonight at 11. Grady, thanks so much.
Hey Sheriff County, this is Sheriff County COPWATCH. I am using any video here with under fair use if you have criticism, reporting, teaching, etc. And please donate. I do not make money from YouTube, and there are different ways to donate in the video links. Thanks.